order in the court.
Hi everyone, Paralegal Man Sam here, and welcome to my channel. Real quick before we get started, I have to give everyone a disclaimer. I'm a paralegal, as the name says, not a lawyer. As such, I'm not allowed to, nor will I be giving any legal advice on this channel. I'm going to be outlining, discussing, and explaining various legal topics to give you a better understanding of how our legal system in America works. Be sure to like and subscribe if you find the videos informative, and if there's any topics you want me to cover, make sure to drop them in the comments below. All right, let's do this. Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. The topic we're going to cover today, I feel, is kind of important for what's going on in the world today, and it might be something that some of you have some questions about or wonder how it works. So what we're going to be covering today is, what is the Insurrection Act? The Insurrection Act is a U.S. federal law passed in 1807 that expanded the president's authority under the Militia Acts of 1792 and 1795. It basically authorized the president to deploy military forces inside the U.S. to suppress rebellion or domestic violence or to enforce the law in certain situations. The act has been amended several times over the past 2 centuries under different presidents. For example, in 1871, the law was revised under the Ku Klux Klan Act, which allowed President Grant to use federal troops to protect the civil rights of former slaves under the 14th Amendment. Now, in order to fully understand the Insurrection Act, you also need to be familiar with the Posse Comitatus Act. This act was signed into law by Rutherford B. Hayes after he agreed to a deal with moderate Southern Democrats in which his electoral victory would be secured in exchange for the withdrawal of federal troops from Southern states that were still under military occupation. Essentially, the act prohibits the use of U.S. military for law enforcement except in circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or an act of Congress. The Insurrection Act is the most important statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act and allows the president to use the military to enforce federal law or suppress a rebellion against federal authority or to protect a group of people's civil rights in a state with or without the state government's consent. The Insurrection Act has been invoked several times in the 20th century, and I'm going to list a few of those for you right now. In 1957, by President Eisenhower to enforce school desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas. In 1962, by JFK to suppress riots aimed at preventing black student James Meredith from enrolling at the University of Mississippi. In 1967, by President Johnson to stop the 5-day Detroit riots. And most recently, in 1992, by H.W. Bush to put an end to the L.A. riots that started after the beating of Rodney King and subsequent acquittal of police officers involved. If you want to review the act word for word, search for 10 U.S. Code sections 251 through 255. I believe the most relevant portions to consider in our current political climate is section 252 and section 253, subsection 2. Now, I'm going to cover these sections pretty much word for word, so hang in there. Section 252 covers the use of militia and armed forces to enforce federal authority and states, whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impractical to enforce the laws of the United States in any state by ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state and use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. Section 253, subsection 2, covers interference with state and federal law and states the following. The president, by using the militia or the armed forces or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination or conspiracy, if it opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States or impedes the course of justice under those laws. One of the most important phrases to consider when thinking about how and when the act might be invoked is whenever the president considers. It doesn't say whenever the people consider, whenever a grand jury decides, whenever a vote has taken place, etc. The act was put into place to be enacted swiftly without the need for judicial proceedings due to time sensitivity of the issue. All right, everybody, I hope this video has helped you better understand the Insurrection Act. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, if there's any topics you'd like me to cover in the future videos, feel free to drop them in the comments. All right, everybody, have a great day.